Zamil all playing Chickaboo.
Yeah. Well, anyway, Malaysia, that was beautiful.
Yeah,
and
nice.
to see how you can actually run a party and beautify your home with that at Tiga Concept. And now we'll move on to the Kechara Soup Kitchen to see what's cooking.
Well, we've got 3 guests in the studio today. Our topic is going to be on youth helping the destitute, and we have with us...
We have Ms. Sharon Saw, Vice President of Kechara Soup Kitchen. We have Jamie Koo, volunteer, and Anna Tan, who's also a volunteer. Welcome, ladies.
First of all, tell us what the Kechara Soup Kitchen is all about.
Okay, Kechara Soup Kitchen basically started out with a small group to distribute food to the poor. And it started off with only a handful of people, and now we've grown to about 10 or 20 people, and we're still growing. And there are people from all walks of life, all ages, all professions, and all united with a common cause to feed the poor and provide first aid as well.
Okay, all right. So tell us a bit more about your experiences in the field. Okay, like how do you go out? When do you go out? What do you experience? What do you see?
Okay, we go out once a week for now, although we are slowly expanding to twice a week now. So far it's every Saturday, and in the evening about 6 o'clock we divide into various groups and go around several areas, which is also growing, because when we started, we actually didn't realize that there were going to be so many people out there who needed help.
Now these areas that you go to, they're not very far from where you and I probably live. They are all based right here in the city center in KL. Now, how surprising was it for you to first encounter homeless situations right smack in the middle of Kuala Lumpur?
I think we kind of tend to forget, you know, when you're in Bukit Bintang or you're in the mall, it's all very glossy, and you don't, I mean, you couldn't imagine that there are these little alleyways that people kind of crouch in. How we found all of our clients is actually just on foot. We just walk around, we go in between alleys, into dark corners, and we find them there, actually. And that is quite surprising. A lot of them, you don't even know that they're homeless. Some people are just sort of wandering around on the streets, and you think that they're just normal passerbys. But, you know, after a while, when we keep going back to the same places every week, we start to establish relationships with these people, and they start to recognize us. Sometimes they take us around and they show us their friends who are on the streets as well. And yeah, and then you kind of uncover them. That's quite a horrible word for youth. But you find all these people, and it's like a whole different community out there, actually. People forget that they're there.
Right. And Anna, maybe for you, being a volunteer, could you just relate to us? What was your most profound experience or touching experience thus far since you've been out in the field?
Okay, there's actually one old lady called Abi. She's based in Petaling Street, Jalan Sultan. Well, she's always beaten up for no reasons.
Beaten up for no reason? By who?
Well, because she has been telling different stories, so we can't really trace who.
Oh, okay.
But the thing is, giving her some first aid treatment, because last week, in fact, I've just given her some treatment, and she was saying that, you know, if wouldn't because of you guys, my wound wouldn't heal so fast, and she's really happy with it. Yeah.
No, it's sad to note that, you know, we still have this homeless situation in Kuala Lumpur. Why are these people homeless from what you've gathered? Is it because of their own choosing, or is it because of the economic condition that has forced them there? Is it urban poverty? What is it that drives them to become homeless?
I think it's not so clear-cut. There are quite a broad range of reasons. There are people who are quite elderly and who actually want to work, but people don't want them because they're too old. Or people think that they're too old. Some people are ill, and people won't hire them because they're sick. There are people who have been on the streets for like 20 years, like years and years and years. So it is quite hard to track why they are there in the first place, actually. But they are not there by choice, you know.
Of course. Well, ladies, we can say that, well, you all are really indeed magnanimous. And, well, pertaining to that, Sharon, maybe you could tell us a bit more about the criteria of a person who actually intends to do this kind of work. I know not everyone can do it, right, or have that spirit to do it. So what do you think are the most important things to have here and here?
I think we welcome basically anyone who has an open mind, because it is very difficult to go out and see people and not judge. You know, we don't judge, we don't care whether they are mentally not very stable, or, you know, what their what race, what cultural background, even their circumstance, whether they're there by choice or, you know, if they're thieves. Actually, we don't really care. If they're hungry, we will feed them. So the people we do tell them, you know, before they volunteer, strict behavior. We must respect the homeless. We don't touch their belongings, because, you know, we don't know what are the parameters of their home. So we don't, you know, we always practice, you know, we try and give the homeless some dignity, because I think they're seen as, you know, untouchable by other members of society. So I think, in a way, the homeless actually give us the opportunity to be charitable. So, you know, and we, Kechara Soup Kitchen actually has a longer term plan, which is to have a permanent soup kitchen, where we can actually provide them food, and they can come to us. So, you know, everyone knows, okay, they can come to this place. So we are looking for shop lots in the center of town, because that is where the homeless are. And, you know, if there was any kind sponsor out there who would like to help us, either provide a building or expenses, you know, we would definitely welcome that. Because our long-term plan is to help the homeless get off the streets.
Right.
You know, by giving them a roof over their head. We are also intending to give them fresh clothes. We'll teach them how to be employable. And a lot of homeless, if they want a job, they can't, because they don't have an address. So hopefully, with our soup kitchen, we can give them a stable center where they can use as a place of refuge, where they can rest, where they can shower, clean, go to work, and hopefully get back into society.
And there is also the issue of safety when you're going out and doing what you do. I'm sure it is not all individuals who do not wish to do harm. Some of them might be, as you said, thieves. How do you protect the safety of the volunteers as they go out?
We go in groups, and we are very careful. We have very strict rules for the volunteers. We say, you know, do not go down alleyways by yourself, and we watch out for each other. We have some quite big, scary-looking guys.
Bodyguard.
Yes, you know, so, and ladies don't go by themselves, you know, so,
But generally, we haven't had people that, you know, I mean, that are menacing or anything. Actually, they kind of tend to start seeing us as friends as well. So, you know, there isn't like a threat that people envisage from these homeless people.
All right. Now, Anna, maybe you could also tell us a bit more about your preparation before you go out into the streets, okay? Now, I'm sure when you first came in, are there people who told you things like, well, in terms of your emotional stability or, you know, access to these people, you should perhaps give to a certain extent, not go all out, you know? How is it for you in terms of handling yourself? Because to not allow their situations to really get to you so that you don't get so emotional?
Well, for me, it will be quite, it will be easier in terms of, because of my background, I'm psychology trained, so it will be easier for me to handle. Whereas for the new volunteers, normally we would let them know that, how should I put it?
They are counseled as to how to handle problems and stories.
We have team leads that go out with the groups. So generally, new volunteers are advised not to go off and try and do anything heroic on their own. So, I mean, even things like shaking their hands, we're advised, you know, not to just go and stick your hand up, because you don't know if there are needles or anything around. And some of them don't want to shake your hand. So, you know, things, it sounds very small, but even things like that, we're advised to follow the team lead, so that, you know where you stand with these people and all that,
Now, what you're doing is not normal KL behavior, you know? I mean, not many people in KL do what you do. Most of the people in KL hang out in malls, they hang out with friends, they go out Bukit Bintang and places like that. But you're doing something completely different. So how has this experience enriched you as a person, Jamie?
Okay, I am one of those people who do like to hang around shopping malls. I'm a bit of a shopping vampire. But I think that it does come to a point where it starts to feel like no matter how much shopping or movies or cafes you do, it does tend to start feeling a bit vacuous.
Yes.
Not to mention expensive.
Yeah. I think what makes a lot of the volunteers go back is that, you know, you're not just giving out food to like random people. You do develop a relationship with these people and you hear their stories, and it is about making a difference to somebody's life, really. And even if it's not, you know, huge long-term solution, because some of them come in and out and we don't see them that often. It is just about bringing a little bit of relief to someone just for the day, and that's really rewarding to see somebody with, you know, with a packet of food for the night. You know, it doesn't matter where they are. If they're hungry, they need to be fed.
Yes.
And after a while, after going out and doing this, you know, when you're sitting in a cafe every weekend, you start to feel a little bit guilty, like, you know, everything is glossy here, but there is a whole community out there that don't have that luxury of doing that as well. So it is a way of giving back something to society. Yeah.
All right, good. So, Anna, maybe you can wind up for us. Maybe you could tell us how we can get involved in Kechara Soup Kitchen, and if we're interested. And also, maybe Sharon, you can tell us what you need from Malaysia, very briefly, to wind up.
For those who would like to volunteer, you can always log on to our website, www. Kechara Soup Kitchen, kskcommunity.org.
Alright, that's the website to go to find out how to remove more of your gloss and help give a little bit more shine to people that really need it.
And Sharon, what is it that you really, really feel and hope for Malaysia to maybe have some awareness about in order to get this more full-blown?
I think on a very basic level, let's think about somebody else for a change, you know. At least for one evening a week, you know, we welcome all of volunteers. And to get this soup kitchen going, to get the permanent soup kitchen, we need funds. So we welcome, you know, if you don't have funds, come and help physically. If you have funds, please donate, or please come and help us to source for a building, and that would help a lot of people, and will help yourself actually in the end. Thank you.
There you go. It's been a very, very inspiring session here today. I mean, I'm touched by this, and I hope all of you watching are as well.
There you go, Malaysia. Food for thought, okay? Somewhere to start, okay? And in society, in the back alleys of KL, not just where shopping malls exist.
That's right, guys. Now, before we wind up once again, just want to remind you that the big decision on Pulau Batu Puteh is going to be live on RTM1 at 4 p.m. today. Thank you very much to our guests for joining us.
Okay, and Malaysia, have a pleasant weekend ahead. Goodbye for now.
Bye-bye, Malaysia.